One of Alfred Hitchcock's early film successes was the 1938 film The Lady Vanishes, a fantastic film starring Margaret Lockwood and Michael Redgrave. It was based on the Ethel Lena White novel The Wheel Spins, and the premise is a classic one. A woman meets a mysterious stranger during a long railway journey.
But this is absurd. I've spoken with His Royal Highness nearly every day for the past 12 months. He's often said that I've almost become one of the family, and that's what I feel. I've come to adore those children. It breaks my heart to leave them. And now, on my last day, you're telling me I can't see him. You're asking me to pack up my tent and leave like a thief in the night.
My dear lady,
Baron, I will not do it. I wish to see the prince. And it's not only to make my farewell in a civilized fashion. I have something I must say to him.
Say it to me, Miss Froy. I can assure you I'll pass it on to His Royal Highness the moment he returns to the palace. That won't be for some days.
This isn't something I wish to entrust to a third party. Where exactly has he gone?
Miss Froy, it grieves me to say so, but I must point out that your position here has somewhat changed in the last few days. As governess to the royal children, you did enjoy the prince's confidence.
You mean
now,
because I'm leaving?
I mean because you're proposing to come back.
I don't quite understand.
Miss Froy, it cannot have escaped your attention that the prince is beset by enemies.
You mean Herr Hitler and those dreadful Nazis?
I mean closer to home. I mean the people who are plotting to overthrow the government and the royal family and substitute some form of so-called democracy.
Really, Baron, you mustn't talk to me about politics. I know nothing at all about them.
That is your only saving grace.
What on earth do you mean?
I mean, dear lady, that if for 1 second I believed you had a political motive for what you're proposing to do, you wouldn't be travelling back to England this afternoon, but standing trial.
Baron Hofmeyer.
Oh, yes, Miss Froy. Am I mistaken, or have you been in communication with a certain Jan Pasterek?
But that's exactly what I want to talk to His Royal Highness about. Mr. and Mrs. Pasterek have asked me to come back next year as governess to their 4 children, 3 girls and a lovely little boy. Enchanting. And I do so love your country, Baron. Surely His Royal Highness would have no objection to my returning to Zabrovnia to put
Miss Froy, you are either very stupid, and I don't believe you're that, or incredibly naive. Aren't you aware that Jan Pasterek is the leader of the Social Democratic Party? That he is the man behind these plots?
Oh, no. Oh, Baron Hofmeyer, surely not.
Yes, Miss Froy. You must take my word for it. And now, I really must ask you to leave. At once, please, Miss Froy.
Oh, but Baron, this makes it all the more vital that I speak with the prince. I must explain. I simply must. Where is he?
Miss Froy, as I've been trying to tell you, His Royal Highness has left the capital. He is not here, and he won't be back for at least 3 days. By that time, I trust you will be safely home in England, and your stay with us will... Miss Froy, if you don't mind...
But that is the prince. That's the prince's voice.
Hofmeyer, give us a drink. Miss Froy.
Your Royal Highness, I'm so glad to see you.
My dear Miss Froy.
Baron Hofmeyer here was trying to tell me you weren't in the palace, but I couldn't leave without saying a proper goodbye. You've all been so good to me.
But we are devastated to see you leave. The children will miss you terribly. We all will.
You're so kind. There is one other thing, Your Royal Highness. I've been given the opportunity of returning to Zabrovnia.
My dear Miss Froy, word had reached me, and you cannot imagine how it grieved me to learn that you'd been misled by the agitator Pasterek. He's so very plausible. But I'm quite sure you wouldn't consider distressing me by even thinking of serving in his household.
Of course not, sir, if you don't wish it.
And now, dear Miss Froy, farewell. I wish you...
The Lady Vanishes.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Is there anyone English in this restaurant car? Anyone?
Can I be of help?
Oh, thank God. I'm sure there's some horrible mistake and I can't speak a word of this wretched language.
Don't worry, I speak the lingo. What's the trouble?
May I offer my services as interpreter?
Oh, he's no good. He only knows grammar. I can swear in the vernacular, and we may need a spot of profanity. Now then, why don't you sit down and tell us what's happened?
Thank you. And thank heaven for someone who can understand what I'm saying.
Would you like something to drink? Coffee, fruit juice?
Oh, nothing, thank you. Oh, God. Where shall I begin? Listen. An Englishwoman has disappeared from the train. Oh, you must believe me. She's a real person. But the Baroness says that... Oh, dear.
You're in a terrible state, miss. What is your name?
I'm Iris Carr.
My name's Hare. Much too long for you to remember. Better call me Maximilian. Though I will answer to Max.
My name's Wilberforce.
I call him the Prof. He's the genuine article, incidentally. Holds the chair of Slavonic and East European Studies somewhere. I forget quite where.
Cambridge University.
Oh, there now. I had an idea it was somewhere I should have remembered.
Now, Miss Carr, perhaps you could give us a more coherent account of what has happened.
I really don't know where to begin.
There's some very good advice in Alice in Wonderland. Begin at the beginning.
Wonderland. That's just it. I feel as though I've somehow slipped out of the real world. Or been pushed.
Miss Carr, really? If you can't tell us what's happened, how on earth can we help you? Now, please, do pull yourself together. What are you doing in Zabrovnia in the first place?
I've been on holiday with some friends. They went back to England at the weekend. I decided to stay on for the few days left of the season.
On your own?
In a way. I mean, there were some English people in the hotel, but they were only nodding acquaintances. I don't think they approved of my crowd. Or of me, come to that. Not surprising, really. They're not precisely my type.
I must say, I'm looking forward to seeing my garden again.
Our garden, Evelyn, dear. I do have an equal share in the property. And as a matter of fact, I do most of the gardening.
You're always so literal, Rose. You must forgive my sister, Vicar. She gives the impression we're always at each other's throats. Nothing could be further from the truth.
I'm sure.
This landscape is quite spectacular, of course, but Suffolk is so beautiful at this time of year.
Well, what I'm looking forward to is sitting in a really comfortable chair again. This thing's agony. Oh, here come the bridal pair. Handsome couple.
I wonder who they really are, Vicar. That man's face. I know I've seen it somewhere. And not attached to the name Todhunter either.
Oh, my sister's off again, Mr. Barnes. Perhaps he's a film star, Rose dear.
Oh, do you think so? How exciting. I love the pictures. Do you go often, Miss Floodporter?
As often as she can, Mrs. Barnes.
No, he's not a film star. I'd certainly recognise someone I'd seen in the cinema. But there's some mystery about those two. I feel it.
So do I. I wonder, do you think they're really married?
Perhaps they're wondering the same about you, Edna, my dear. Well, isn't it simpler to believe that we're all what we say we are? Even parsons and their wives? I think I'll stroll down to the village to say goodbye to my friends. See you all later.
How can he talk to them when he doesn't know the language?
Oh, he makes them understand. Sympathy, you know, and common humanity. Hello, my dear. Left all alone?
Yes, by choice.
Aren't you lonely?
Not at all. I'm enjoying my own company.
Are you travelling back to England on Tuesday?
That's right.
It's a long journey, and they usually try to pack too many passengers into the last good train of the season. Would you like to join Mr. Barnes and me? We could travel together.
Thank you, but I really would prefer to be on my own.
Just as you wish, my dear. I hope you have a pleasant journey.
Wait! Oh, do wait!
Here, miss. This carriage. Quick, quick.
Is there a seat in this compartment?
I'm sure we can squeeze you in, my dear. Oh, come and sit next to me. The train's very full, isn't it?
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Up there, Porter.
Excusez, madame.
Daj pazi molesnes spretny.
Chciałbym se wasze wysości.
Hotovan.
Odmak, wasze wysości, odmak.
Thank you, Porter. Yeah, will this do?
Thank you, miss. Hey, goodbye, miss.
Hotovan molet.
Come and sit down, my dear. It may be a bit of a squash, but it's better than standing.
Thank you. I'm afraid the porter upset that lady in the corner seat. She's rather formidable, isn't she?
She's the Baroness von Zoenstein, and she called him an oaf twice.
Good heavens! Can you speak the language?
Oh, quite a bit.
Do you know Zabrovnia well?
Quite well. I've been living here en famille for the past year. In fact, the Baroness is a member of the family. It's not wise to mention names, but I was governess to the highest in the place.
I wonder if she speaks English. Excuse me, madam. Do you happen to speak English?
Huh.
Apparently not, though I bet she does. But I don't think anyone else in this compartment does.
I think you're right. You'll just have to put up with me until we reach Trieste. What do you say to a nice cup of tea? Shall we make our way to the restaurant car?
What a good idea. Excuse me. Oh, sorry.
It's this way, I think, my dear. Just glance into the next compartment as we go by, and I'll tell you something.
As soon as I did so, I regretted it. What I saw was horrifying. A figure, the head, eyes and forehead bandaged, and the features concealed by a crisscross of plaster strips, lay stretched on the length of one seat covered with rugs. I tried to imagine what sort of mutilation a face must suffer to be bandaged like that, and I shuddered. A nun sat by the figure, and a man with a black spade beard was talking to her.
You recognize that man, my dear?
Didn't he come into our compartment and speak to the Baroness?
Yes, he did. And that's how I know about this. He's a doctor. His patient's a woman who's been terribly injured in a car accident. The doctor's rushing her to a hospital in the north of the country for a tricky operation. This train's the fastest way of getting her there.
That nun looks something less than spiritual.
Oh, she doesn't spend her time on her knees. She's a fully trained nursing sister. Come on, my dear. Excuse me. Excuse me, please.
Sorry.
Sorry. I beg your pardon.
No, my fault entirely. It's all these people. I was just looking out to see if our tea was coming. I ordered it from an attendant.
You're English. This is my lucky day. I've been starved of English company for 12 months.
And now you're on your way home?
It's almost too good to be true. Look, we're just off to the restaurant car. Shall I send a waiter with your tea?
Oh, that would be really kind. My husband's such a wretched traveller. He's almost prostrated. Oh, hello, Miss Carr. I hope you found a seat.
Only just.
We all got on. The Todd Hunters are on their own, of course, but the Miss Flood Porters are next door to us. They're having tea at the moment.
And that's what we should be doing. Goodbye, and I won't forget the waiter. Isn't all this fun? Milk, please.
Why do you like it?
It's travel. We're moving. And best of all, we're on our way back home. Now, my dear, I noticed that English lady called you Miss Carr. But what's your Christian name?
Iris.
How lovely. I'm afraid Winifred pales into insignificance beside the thought of that lovely flower. I'm Winifred Froy.
It seems rather late in the day to say how do you do.
Yes, I feel we're quite old friends.
Me too, even though I know nothing about you.
Oh, there's not much to know. I've been doing a year as governess to the children of... No, I'd better not say. But there's no one more important in Zabrovnia. You can have no idea of the power of my late employer. What he says goes.
Isn't that rather, well, degrading?
I suppose it is. But that's how things are in this part of the world. After a time, one becomes quite spineless. And that's not English, Iris, is it? Oh, it'll be lovely to be home. Father and Mother are as excited as children.
You still have your parents?
Oh, yes. A little frail, but still going strong. And so is Sock.
Sock?
Short for Socrates. He's an old English sheepdog. Mother says she's sure he knows I'm coming home. The old duffer trots off to meet every train and then comes back with his tail down, the picture of depression. The parents can't wait for his reaction when I do arrive.
I'd love to see him.
Those two ladies over there. I'm sure they're English.
Where? Oh, yes, the Flood Porters. They were at our hotel. They're sisters. Well, I suppose we'd better be getting back. Though I can't say I relish spending the next few hours in the company of that appalling grande dame.
The Baroness. A bit overwhelming, perhaps, but quite kind-hearted beneath it all, and very generous.
Really?
Oh, yes. There was some muddle about my place on the train. I booked second class, but there wasn't a single seat left. Do you know, the Baroness paid the difference, so that I could travel first class in her carriage.
Did she?
She said she was sure my late employer would have wished it. Really kind. Well, shall we make a move?
Excuse me. Please. Excuse me.
Excuse me. Do have a peek in this compartment. There's a glorious couple, just like film stars come to life.
Yes, they were staying at our hotel too. Their name's Todhunter, and they don't like company.
Of course not, when they're so in love. Oh dear, he's looking daggers at me.
Yes, he'll certainly know you again. Oh, sorry.
Excuse me.
Excuse me.
Oh, look, I wonder how that poor patient is doing. I do hope they get her to hospital in time.
Oh, and here we are. Oh, dear. There's that Baroness to face again.
I tell you what, don't let's sit mum. Even if I am under an obligation to her, I'm going to remember we're English. We won't be put down.
That's the spirit. Though I'm not sure I'll be up to it, Miss Froy. My head's been aching like mad for hours.
You poor thing. I thought you were looking a little poorly.
I think I must have had too much sun yesterday.
Then come and sit down. You'd better not have dinner in the restaurant car. I tell you what, I'll bring you something later. Now, why don't you get a little nap? You'll feel much better when you wake.
I closed my eyes. I could still hear Miss Froy fluttering about me, but the carriage was so warm that I soon became drowsy, and at last I dozed off. I awoke suddenly. I don't know why. My head was still throbbing. I turned it to ease the pain. Miss Froy wasn't beside me. To be honest, I was rather glad. I didn't feel up to making conversation. None of the other passengers took the slightest notice of me. The Baroness slept in her corner. The others sat silent. A pretty girl of about 20, and a family party consisting of 2 large parents and a small daughter. I looked at them for a moment or two, until my lids drooped again, and once more I fell asleep. The next time I woke, it was pretty dark. Miss Froy was still not beside me. Not long ago I'd been pleased by her absence. Now I felt lonely, eager to see her again. Where was she? It was at that moment I happened to look up at the rack. Miss Froy's suitcase was no longer there.
Well, obviously she'd moved to another compartment.
Didn't you say there'd been some mix-up with her seat? Perhaps it had become free after all.
I thought that, but then I remembered that the Baroness had actually paid the difference for her to travel first.
Oh, that's right.
Besides, Miss Froy would never have left me without a word of explanation. And she'd promised to bring me dinner. No, she'd never just slip out of the compartment like that.
Well, I take it you questioned your fellow passengers.
I tried. I just couldn't make anyone understand. I couldn't reach them. The Baroness was still sleeping in her corner, and I suddenly felt desperate. I went over to her and shook her arm. The others gasped. You'd have thought I was committing sacrilege. Wake up.
Oh, madame.
Wake up, please.
Qui today? a latte? Oh, it is you. What is it you require?
Where is Miss Froy?
Miss Froy? I know nobody who has that name.
She sat over there, beside me.
You make a mistake. No English lady has sat there ever.
You are the Baroness von Zoenstahlen.
That is my name?
Well, it was Miss Froy who told me so. I talked to her, and we went and had tea together. Oh, you must remember.
There is nothing to remember. How you came by my name is a matter of indifference. But I tell you this, there has been no English lady here in this carriage, never at any time, except you. You are the only English lady here.
You're saying the Baroness denied that this Miss Froy was ever in the compartment?
Precisely. I was literally dumbfounded. I couldn't say a word. I simply couldn't understand why she should say such a thing.
So you came looking for help and ran into us two?
Not at once. I was certain she was somewhere on the train. So I went to find her.
Bully for you.
It didn't do much good. The corridor's so jam-packed that getting through is like swimming in a sea of treacle. All I could see was a blur of faces, and my head was giving me hell. Still is, come to that.
Poor you.
After a bit, I reached the compartment with that vicar, Barnes, I think his name is, and his wife. He looked dreadful.
Why, it's Miss Carr.
I'm terribly sorry to bother you, but I'm looking for my friend.
Oh, yes?
You remember her? She sent the waiter with your tea.
It was very kind of her. Will you give her my special thanks?
When I find her, she left the compartment some time ago, and she hasn't returned.
Well, she can't have left the train, so she's bound to be back soon.
Well, can I find her for you?
Certainly not, Kenneth. Don't be absurd. You're in no fit state to go traipsing round the train. Just look at you. In any case, you don't know what she looks like.
Oh, that's true. Oh, isn't it humiliating to be such a wretched traveller? I'm sorry, my dear. I'd be more hindrance than help.
So I didn't pursue it. I then went down the complete length of the train, and then came back here to the restaurant car to see if anyone could help me.
Of course, we'll help you, won't we, Prof?
Well, the first step is clearly to interview the other passengers in your compartment. If the lady hasn't returned by the time we've done that, I may consider calling the guard and asking for an official examination of the train.
Oh, thank you, Professor Wilberforce. You can't imagine what a relief
Truth
it
is, this is his best chance in years to practice the lingo. Well, what are we waiting for? Lead the way, Miss Carr.
Miss Carr, you appear to have made an extraordinary mistake. I've cross-questioned everyone except the little girl.
Who wouldn't talk to him?
And I can tell you that no one in that carriage knows anything about the English lady you say is missing.
But that's absolutely impossible. You see,
Nor does Dr. Trownitz here. You know he's travelling with his patient in the next compartment. That's so, isn't it, Doctor?
I'm afraid it is. The questions and the answers were most explicit.
So what are you saying? That I invented Miss Froy?
I hardly know what to think.
Then I'll tell you. They're all lying. Every one of them.
I say, steady on. The man, the woman, that pretty young thing, and the rock of the aristocracy in black bombazine, all of them?
The man is a banker, really quite eminent. The Baroness's own, as a matter of fact. She vouches for him and for his wife. The young lady is the daughter of the agent for the whole Zoenstahlen estate. And as for the Baroness herself...
I don't care what they told you, Professor, or what the Baroness said. All I know is that I still owe Miss Froy for my tea. She paid for me.
Well, we can soon check up on that. If you had tea together, the waiter might remember her. Which one was it?
I don't know. My head was throbbing. I didn't take any notice.
I'd like to know what Miss Froy looks like. Describe her.
Oh, dear. I can't really tell you very much. She's middle-aged, ordinary, just ordinary.
Tall or short? Fat or thin? Fair or dark?
Medium. She had blue eyes.
A totally unmemorable woman, with blue eyes.
What was she wearing?
Tweed. Oatmeal flecked with brown. Patch pockets. A shirt blouse stitched with blue. And a small blue handkerchief in the breast pocket. Oh, And she was wearing a hat with a funny bright blue feather in it.
Stop. Now that you've remembered the hat, make a special effort and put a face under it.
Oh, it's no good. You see, I had such a frantic headache. I believe I had too much sun yesterday.
Ah, my dear young lady, that blow of the sun, it explains all. A delirium is not uncommon. The mind plays tricks. So, you see someone who is not there. You even think you talk to her. After you go to sleep. When you wake, you are better, so you see Miss Froy no more. Believe me, she is nothing but a delirium. A dream.
I think we may accept that as final. If I'd known the circumstances, I shouldn't have intervened. I hope you'll soon feel better, Miss Carr.
I may have a headache, but I've not gone gaga. Just a moment. I've thought of something. Baroness von Zernstahlen.
I have already admitted to that name.
You have denied that Miss Froy was ever in this carriage, and everyone else here backs you up.
They say it because it is so. Why you think that I should invent this or that they should, I cannot imagine.
Nor can I. Miss Froy told me that you had been very kind to her.
Really? In what way?
She said there had been some problem about her seat, and that you pay the excess fare for her to travel in here.
How charming of me. I'm gratified to hear of my generosity. Unfortunately, I know nothing of it. But the ticket collector should be able to refresh my memory.
Well, that's easy enough to arrange. There he is at the end of the corridor. I'll fetch him. Pardon me.
This should really settle the matter, Miss Carr.
Here he is.
Light it up, Roger. You have a problem? Gentlemen? Ladies?
This lady is the Baroness von Zernstahlen. Did she pay you the extra fare to allow a second-class passenger to sit in this carriage?
Which second-class passenger?
An English lady, middle-aged. She wore a hat with a feather.
Where is she? Let me see her ticket.
That's just the problem. She's vanished.
I recall no such lady, madame. And I have upgraded nobody to first class.
I believe that concludes the matter. Miss Carr, at your behest, I have conducted a series of pointless and rather embarrassing interviews. I now propose to retire to my compartment. I sincerely hope that you won't expose us and yourself to any further ridicule.
Very well, Professor. Then I've only one course open to me. I shall have to prove to you that Miss Froy really does exist.
But how?
I'll start by speaking to the people I was with at the hotel. They all saw her.
All right. I'll come with you. Let's see if any of them can remember your Miss Froy, shall we?
Who's the girl looking in?
One of the mob from the hotel.
Help?
Mr. Todhunter, my name's Iris Carr. You remember me from the hotel, I'm sure. An Englishwoman called Miss Froy has disappeared from the train. You'll help me find her, won't you?
I'd be delighted to cooperate with you, but who is Miss Froy?
She's middle-aged, ordinary. She peeped in at your window as we went by, and you jumped up and pulled down the blind.
I'm sorry, but I've no recollection of any such occurrence.
But you saw her. Your wife called your attention to her. You were both annoyed.
Miss Carr, we aren't a peep show, and no one looked in. Do you mind if you shut the door? I want to rest before dinner.
I'm sorry, Miss Carr, but I can't recall your companion. Someone may have been with you at the table, but I wasn't wearing my glasses.
Neither was I, so I'm afraid we shan't be able to help you. It would be against our principles to identify someone we weren't sure of.
How about not raising a finger to help an Englishwoman in danger? What price your principles on that?
Danger? What could possibly happen to her on a crowded train?
Danger? Who's in danger? Oh, hello, Mrs. Barnes. I'm still trying to find my friend, Miss Froy. You remember, the lady who ordered your tea for you? I suppose you never saw her.
The little lady in tweed with a blue feather in her hat. Of course I remember her. We were so grateful for the tea.
Oh, Mrs. Barnes. Are you convinced now, Professor?
I'm sorry to have doubted your word, Miss Carr. But we had to have some corroborative evidence that Miss Froy actually exists.
And now we have it. Next question. What on earth's happened to the old dear?
And why did those foreigners all lie about her?
We'll have to play Spot the Lady. For my money, she's disguised as the Doctor. That beard looks totally phony to me. Why not give it a tug next time he passes?
Max, do take this seriously, please. She is still missing.
Sorry, you're right.
When are we due at Trieste?
Just before 11, I think. But the guard was telling me we have an unscheduled stop this side of the border at about 10:30, to let the doctor and his patient off.
And it's now nearly 6:30. Look, we mustn't waste any more time. We must find her. I know it sounds sloppy, but her people, they're old and a bit frail. They're expecting her home, counting the hours. And the fool of a dog meets every train. And... Oh, Lord. Sorry.
Take it easy, Iris. You're not on your own. Oh, watch out. Here comes Blackbeard.
Pardon me, but I thought you would wish to hear. Your friend has returned to the carriage.
Miss Froy? Really? Oh, how marvellous. Where was she?
All the time so near. In the next carriage, talking with my nurses.
The one place I didn't look. Of course she'd want to know how your patient was getting on. That's Miss Froy to a T. Well, come on. What are we waiting for?
You too, Prof. At last we can meet the elusive Miss Froy.
Mičete se. Dajte da prođem.
Beg your pardon.
Dajte da prođem.
Sorry.
Do you mind? I beg your pardon. If I could... Thank you.
Your carriage at last, Miss Carr. Allow me. And here she is.
But that's not Miss Froy.
What do you mean?
She's wearing her clothes, her hat, but that woman's an imposter. You aren't Miss Froy.
No, I have not heard that name before. I am Frau Kummer.
As I told you, there has been no English lady in this compartment except yourself. Of course, had you inquired about Frau Kummer?
Frau Kummer? I've never heard the name before.
But I introduced myself before we went to have tea together.
That's a lie. I've never seen you before in my life. You're a total stranger. Professor Wilberforce, this is not Miss Froy.
The lady herself has told us that.
But she's wearing her clothes. Why? What's become of Miss Froy?
A lady only you seem to have met.
It's a conspiracy of some sort. They're all in it.
Miss Carr.
Oh, let me think. Mrs. Barnes, she spoke to Miss Froy. Oh, fetch her, Max, please.
Kenneth, my dear, you're looking so ill. Excuse me, please, I'm sorry. I'm really worried about you. Should you be doing this? Oh, if only I could get you home.
Well, I'll be all right, Edna. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Pardon me. Sorry. I do apologize. Miss Carr. I understand you want my wife to identify a friend of yours?
Thank you both so much for coming.
Kenneth, let me get you back to the compartment. You ought to be lying down.
Here we are. Oh, do give us some room, please. Now, Mrs. Barnes, please look very carefully. Is this the lady who arranged for your tea to be sent?
Let me see. Yes, of course it is.
What happened?
You fainted, Iris. Nothing serious. So we brought you along to our bunny hatch. But all this is getting on top of you, you know.
Max, I want to talk to you. There is a Miss Froy. You must believe me. The trouble is, my head feels like a three-ring circus. I can't even quite remember what I told you and the professor earlier on. I'd like to go over the whole thing with you. What about it?
Good idea. One thing has struck me. From what you said, I'm pretty sure your Miss Froy was employed by the royal family. Crown Prince Frederick and his wife.
That makes sense.
You know the place was in a turmoil just before we left.
Was it?
Oh, yes. Some politico called Jan Pastrecht was supposed to be threatening a sort of armed uprising. But who knows? It's all plot and counterplot in these mid-European states. I'd have thought they had enough on their hands fending off a Nazi takeover. Word is Herr Hitler has his beady eye on Zabrovnia.
Oh, never mind all that. The important thing is you've worked out who Miss Froy's employer was from things she told me. Things I passed on.
But, Iris, that proves nothing. It could all apply equally well to Frau Kummer. No. Let's take a cold, hard look at the situation.
Go on.
You're suggesting that the Baroness has got rid of Miss Froy, never mind why or how, and that the passengers and the ticket collector, being local people, are backing her up. Well, knowing this part of the world, I think they would.
But it all seems such a clumsy sort of plot. I mean, dressing someone up as Miss Froy.
Ah, but that needn't have been part of the original plot at all.
You mean I upset their apple cart, barging into the carriage at the last minute?
Exactly. When you first made a fuss about Miss Froy, they'd all denied her existence. But when you said other English people had seen her, they had to produce someone.
Oh, Max, you're such a comfort. You see, you believe in Miss Froy too.
I'm not saying that, but I do promise to believe in you.
Max.
So, let's assume a plot inspired by the All-Highest in Zabrovnia and carried out by his relative, the Baroness von Zoenstahlen.
In collaboration with that doctor. I don't trust that man.
We'll go along with your feminine intuition, in cahoots with the doctor. Let's say they're both under orders to bump off Miss Froy. That instantly discredits all the foreign evidence.
You really are rather marvellous.
Hang on to the bouquets. Because against all that, we have some really insuperable obstacles. To start with, 6 eminently respectable English people have failed to corroborate Miss Froy's existence. Why?
That I don't know. I honestly don't know.
And then, why should a harmless English governess be the object of an elaborate plot by the head of state of Zabrovnia?
It seems unbelievable. Impossible.
So where does that leave us? No one, foreign or English, backs up your story. On the other hand, Mrs. Barnes positively identifies this Frau Kummer as the woman you were with on the way to tea. On top of that, you did suffer mild sunstroke yesterday, and you've been feeling the effects all day.
Oh, dear. So the doctor could be right. It's the sunstroke. I went to tea with that Kummer woman and later dreamt about Miss Froy.
Well, that's one logical explanation.
All right, Max. I give in. Let's forget about Miss Froy.
All alone, Miss Carr?
Yes, they've all gone to dinner. First sitting.
I'm pleased to find you alone, actually. You know, Miss Carr, Hare and I are both a bit worried about you.
There's no need.
No, but there is. You've suffered sunstroke.
I've more or less...
I was discussing it with Dr. Traunitz just now, and he came up with an admirable suggestion.
What suggestion?
As you know, the doctor's taking his patient to a hospital in the north of the country. He knows of an excellent nursing home very close by. He'll gladly arrange for you to spend the night there at no charge. You could have a good night's sleep and continue your journey tomorrow.
Most definitely not.
But, my dear Miss Carr...
Professor Wilberforce, nothing on earth would induce me to go anywhere with that man. There really is nothing more to be said.
As you wish, Miss Carr. I was merely trying to be helpful.
Thank God we can drop this Todd Hunter farce before too long. It can't happen too soon for me.
I don't know what you're worried about. There's not much chance of his finding out.
But there is some. Is that what you're saying?
I'd say we were reasonably secure. Of course, one never knows what can happen. I've handled some very odd divorce cases in my time.
Divorce?
It was perhaps unfortunate there were English visitors at our hotel.
Oh.
And you are entirely too beautiful to remain anonymous for long.
You told me there was no risk. Oh, what a fool I've been.
I don't know why you're suddenly so anxious to get back to your husband.
Let's be honest about this, shall we? We're both in it for what we can get, and he can give me more than you can.
if this ever gets out.
So it's lucky I was thinking ahead when that girl asked about her friend who's disappeared.
What do you mean?
If I hadn't denied all knowledge of her, I'd have had to make a statement at Trieste. Can't you see the headlines? English woman lost on Continental Express. Mr. Todhunter pictured here. An Englishman travelling on the same train. I'd have been identified in 24 hours flat. And so would you, my sweet.
Oh!
I couldn't touch a thing. I'll eat when we get to Trieste.
But that's not for another hour. More if we're delayed getting the doctor's patient off the train. We'll be stopping before too long.
Max, tell me, could you write a detective story?
Can't spell, but I solve them like a shot.
Then let's have a demonstration. You've proved Miss Froy doesn't exist. Now, humour me. Pretend she does. Work out what might have happened to her.
You don't give up, I'll say that for you. Let me think. OK, here goes. The strange disappearance of Miss Froy. Your Miss Froy is a spy who's got some information she's sneaking out of the country. So she's got to be bumped off. What better way than on a railway journey? People stop off, miss connections. By the time anyone got really concerned, the trail would be stone cold.
So is the whole train in the plot?
Oh no, just the Baroness, the Doctor and the nuns. But there's also the conspiracy of silence, which covers the passengers and the ticket collector. They're all Zabrovnians, and they'd all go along with the Baroness.
What about getting Miss Froy into the Baroness's compartment in the first place?
Oh, yes. Dirty work at the crossroads over Miss Froy's seat. They had to be sure she'd be with the Baroness and next door to the Doctor.
But what's happened to her?
I'll tell you. At this very moment, Miss Froy is lying flat out in the next compartment, tightly bound in bandages and covered with rugs.
Oh, my God! How? When?
It happened when you obligingly dropped off to sleep. Enter the Doctor. He asks Miss Froy if she would render some slight service to his patient. She went.
She would? I know she would.
Directly she enters, down comes the blind, and the three of them set on her.
Three?
Of course. The patient's one of them. One holds her, the other stops her shouting, and the Doctor gives her a knockout injection.
Yes! Yes! I can see it! It could have happened.
They tie her up, gag her, and lay her out in the place of the false patient. But by now, you've unearthed some English people who'll remember Miss Froy. So down comes the blind again, as the second nun, the one who posed as the patient, dresses herself in Miss Froy's clothes.
Oh, Lord! What'll they do to her?
When we make our unscheduled stop in about 20 minutes from now, she'll be put into an ambulance, taken away and disposed of.
You're right. I know you're right. It's the only logical explanation.
Oh, Iris, for heaven's sake. I made it all up. It's a fantasy. I invented it.
Oh, I don't mean about Miss Froy being a spy. That's all poppycock. But it's what they've done with her, I'm sure of it. She's lying next door, doped up to the eyebrows, and wrapped round in bandages like an Egyptian mummy. Come on. We've got to find the Professor. We must rescue her before she's taken off the train.
Miss Carr. Herr, come to join the Doctor and me for dinner. Soup's very good.
Professor, I know where Miss Froy is.
Oh, dear. Miss Froy again. I had hoped we'd disposed of the mythical Miss Froy.
Do you still have your headache, Miss Carr?
Professor, Miss Froy is far from mythical, but she'll certainly be disposed of in little more than 15 minutes unless we do something.
What exactly do you mean, Miss Carr?
I'm afraid this is all my fault, Prof. I dreamt up a little fairy tale, and Iris has fastened onto it.
This is no fairy tale, believe me. Professor, you must take it seriously. As for you, Dr. Trownitz, I don't have to tell you to take it seriously, because you're in this game in deadly earnest.
My dear Miss Carr.
What precisely are you alleging?
Just this. That the doctor's patient, all conveniently wrapped in bandages from head to toe, is no accident victim but Miss Froy. That's why she's disappeared. And that's why they're going to remove her from the train before we reach the border.
But this is totally absurd, Miss Carr. My patient joined the train before you did.
Someone wrapped in bandages on a stretcher did. You enticed Miss Froy into that carriage while I was asleep, and you substituted her for your accomplice.
And where, if I may inquire, is the original patient?
That's obvious, Professor. Frau Kummer, now dressed in Miss Froy's clothes.
I've never heard of such a farrago of nonsense. Who on earth do you suppose dreamed up such a conspiracy? And why?
I think I know who. Why, I don't know. But believe me, Professor, Miss Froy, a dear, gentle creature who's never harmed a soul in her life, will be abducted from this train and probably killed, unless we do something about it. Oh, you must take this seriously. There's so little time.
Perhaps we'd better come at once to see my patient. I'm sorry to disturb your dinner, Professor, but the young lady is in a highly emotional state. It may be best to try to reassure her.
Oh, very well.
Now, Miss Carr, look carefully at the patient's legs. Can you identify these shoes?
You know I can't. You might have better luck if you removed that mask of bandage and showed us her face.
I see you don't understand. Beneath these bandages there is no face, only lumps of raw flesh. We shall try to rebuild a face. Let us hope we're successful. The eyes, we must await the oculist verdict. Till then, we dare not expose them to even a flicker of light. It may be total blindness. One eye is only pulp. You look unwell, Miss Carr.
I don't believe you. It's all lies.
In that case, Miss Carr, why not tear off a strip of plaster and look under the pad of bandages? But if you do, I warn you that bleeding will start again and the patient will die from shock almost immediately. You'll be charged with murder. But since you're so sure of the face under these bandages, take hold of this plaster. Tear it off.
Iris, don't.
Miss Froy, can you hear me? If you can hear me, Miss Froy, hold up your hand. Miss Froy, hold up your hand. Max, look. Oh, look, that finger, she's moving.
But that's no proof it's Miss Froy. It could be anybody. For heaven's sake, Iris, don't touch those plasters. You can't know it's her. Iris!
Miss Carr!
Miss Froy! Oh, Miss Froy! Dear, dear Miss Froy!
I don't know what's behind all this, Dr. Trownitz, but you have attempted to abduct a citizen of the United Kingdom. If you make any attempt to prevent us from leaving the compartment with this lady, I shall instantly summon help.
Bravo, Prof.
What's more, if you and your friends are on this train when we reach Trieste, I shall immediately contact the authorities and make quite certain they detain you.
My dear Professor, I can assure you that neither the Baroness nor I have any intention of leaving Zabrovnia. In fact, a car is awaiting our party at the moment by the side of the railway track. If you will excuse me...
Thank heaven their party will be one fewer than they anticipated.
I've more than heaven to thank for that, my dear. If it hadn't been for you...
This is Victoria. The train arriving at platform 5 is the boat train from Dover. The Continental Express is arriving at platform 5.
Oh, excuse me, are you Miss Froy?
Yes, I am.
You don't know me, Miss Froy. My name's Ian Bretherton. I'm, from the Foreign Office.
The Foreign Office? Is it my passport? Is there something...
Is there some trouble? Can I help?
Are you travelling with this lady?
In a manner of speaking. My name's Max Hare. This is Iris Carr.
Hello.
We've heard from our consul in Trieste. I know you've all had a difficult journey.
You could say that again.
But I wonder, Miss Froy, if you could spare an hour to come with me to the Foreign Office. My chief, Stephen Yardley, would like a word.
Good gracious me! Whatever for?
Well, this is scarcely the place to go into details. Perhaps you'd all better come along. Would it be enough to say that it's a matter of national security?
Have any of you seen this morning's papers?
Mr. Yardley, I'm afraid we've not had much opportunity recently for anything so mundane as reading a newspaper.
I thought not. I have a copy of today's Times. See that?
Ye gods.
Oh, my word. The poor prince. Is this true, Mr. Yardley? The Nazis have invaded Zabrovnia. The poor man, he must be in despair.
That's the very point we think you may be able to help us establish.
Me? Oh, you're quite mistaken. I know nothing at all about politics.
You lived for a year in the royal household.
Oh, yes, but I was concerned with the children's education, that's all. I took no part in anything political. Really, Mr. Yardley.
I believe you, Miss Froy. And it's not anything you did that interests us. It may be something you saw.
Something I saw?
And this something, would it have anything to do with what happened to poor Miss Froy on the train?
But I never saw anything of importance. I do assure you.
Let me explain what's supposed to have happened in Zabrovnia since you left the country at, when was it?
2 p.m. on Tuesday. It seems a lifetime away.
Well, on Tuesday afternoon at about 4 o'clock, Radio Zabrovnia announced that an armed insurrection led by Jan Pastrekt had seized key points in the capital, and there was fierce fighting in the streets. Pastrekt had apparently taken advantage of the absence of the Crown Prince to make his move. The Prince and the rest of the royal household were several hundred miles away, and the route back to the palace was barred by Pastrekt's guerrillas.
But Mr. Yardley...
Just a moment, Miss Froy. Let me finish. An hour later, the radio reported that government forces were falling back, and some had surrendered. At about 10 o'clock that night, the Commander-in-Chief sent an urgent wire to Herr Hitler, asking for Germany's help to crush the rebellion. Nazi stormtroopers crossed the Zabrovnian frontier at midnight. You were saying, Miss Froy?
But this story, it can't be correct. His Royal Highness was in the palace on Tuesday at about midday. I spoke to him myself. Oh, my goodness.
Yes, Miss Froy?
I went to the Prince's office suite. I'd never done that before. You see, I was leaving in a few hours, and I very much wanted to speak to His Royal Highness face to face. Baron Hofmeyer, his chef du cabinet, I suppose you'd call him, tried to convince me that the Prince wasn't in the capital, that he'd be away for several days. Then His Royal Highness suddenly burst out of his inner sanctum.
And that, Miss Froy, was the moment you saw something you shouldn't have seen. You saw Crown Prince Frederick in the capital, in charge of the government, just a few hours before a so-called insurrection and an apparently God-given excuse for the Nazis to march into Zabrovnia.
You mean the whole thing's a put-up job?
That's what we believe.
We think there was a deal. Crown Prince Frederick wants to parade to the world as a neutral, even as a victim. So it was vital for it to appear that he was hundreds of miles away when his commander-in-chief called for German help. The truth is, the Nazis have taken over the country by arrangement, and the Crown Prince will stay on his throne as a puppet.
But from the moment Miss Froy clapped eyes on the Prince in the palace on Tuesday afternoon, she was a mortal threat to the whole scheme.
The very second you left that room, Miss Froy, the Prince and Hofmeyer must have started their plotting.
Bloody woman. We are done for, Hofmeyer.
I don't think so, Your Royal Highness. We must simply make quite certain that she doesn't leave the country. She must never cross the frontier.
But we can't arrest her without causing a diplomatic incident. Think of the British ambassador. And we can't prevent her getting on that train this afternoon. The children are going to the station to see her off.
All right. We let her get on the train.
Oh, and then what? You're not a magician, Hofmeyer. You can't make a lady vanish.
Can I not, Your Royal Highness? Leave it to me. Leave everything to me.
And he set the whole thing up in a couple of hours. Some organizer.
But now, Miss Froy, thanks to you, we know the truth about the Crown Prince. He can't pose as an unwilling victim of the Nazis. Not to us.
We know he's hand in glove with them, and we'll act accordingly.
Don't thank me, gentlemen. It's these two young people here you should thank. Especially you, dear Iris. If you hadn't stuck to your guns, I'd never have left Sir Prothmere alive. I owe what's left of my life to you.
Miss Froy.
And now, you two, what are you going to do with the rest of the day?
Miss Froy, you're nothing but an old matchmaker. All right, you've talked me into it. Iris, how about dinner and a nightclub?
What a lovely idea. I'm game.
Pick you up at 7.
Now that, Mr. Yardley, is what I call a young man who'll go far. In less than 24 hours, he's managed to find not one, but 2 ladies.